Alright, I'm gonna be upfront. I love Mega Man. I've played through most of the games, I waste money on the stupidly expensive merchandise, I buy the collections multiple times, I listen to the soundtrack in the shower, I even use the body pillow. Well, okay, maybe I love Mega Man a little too much. But my love of Mega Man doesn't even come close to just how much the franchise owner, Capcom, loves killing the guy in cold blood. Sure, most video game historians have discussed at length about the many times that Capcom has cancelled the development of a Mega Man game, or how they seemingly iced the franchise for most of the 2010s, but the video isn't about that, because even in the games themselves, Mega Man gets killed. A lot. Whether it's an evil clone, a main character, or just some other guy named Mega Man, most characters that bear the titular name or title end up meeting their demise, so why not count up almost every time it has happened? First, let's establish the criteria before we jump into things. 1. Characters that count are any character that has Mega Man in their name. It could be a literal mouse, but if its name is Mega Man, then it counts. 2. Characters that have the rank or title of Mega Man. 3. Any evil copies or duplications of a Mega Man. I'll count them separately from the real deals by the end of the video for the odd fellow out there that actually cares. 4. The death needs to have occurred in a Mega Man video game, so no matter how many times Mega Man gets murdered in Smash Bros, it's not gonna count. I'm also not going to be looking at any other medium besides video games. I have enough corpses to work with as is without having to consider the manga, anime, or card games. 5. We're not going to be looking into Rockman X Dive or any boss rush mode or challenge mode from any of the games. Since Dive is a mobile gacha game that is continuously updated, including it would age the video tremendously whenever they add a new Mega Man as a boss fight or whatever. Seems like awfully limiting criteria, but like I said, there's still almost too much to work with. So with that all out of the way, join me in this morbid adventure as we roleplay as Daddy Capcom and get as many Mega Men killed as we can. Alright, so beginning with the original or classic games, this series stars the original Blue Bomber, a housekeeping robot named Rock, who is upgraded into Mega Man. To start, we have to look no further than literally the very first game to see our first Mega Man death. Glad to see that some traditions get started nice and early, I guess. In the second level of Wily's factory, Mega Man drops down to the boss door where he watches a device float over him and copy him, and why he just stands there and lets it happen is anyone's guess. Out comes a duplicate of Mega Man known as Copy Robot, who has the exact same appearance as us, has all of our boss powers, just as much health, even stronger lemons, but less brain cells. Alright, one game in and one man down. We've also got the remake on PSP, where a different Mega Man duplicate comes out when you play as a Robot Master in their own stage. Despite the original not showing up at all in the Robot Master campaigns, the game feels the need to remind us that this isn't the original Rock at all. I guess they didn't want to subjugate players to the horror of killing off our beloved hero, even though that hasn't stopped them before or after. This guy has some design differences to signify that he is an evil Mega Man, like by wearing the scarf that Grandma made for him. So already we've got 2 down, and I've only had to touch the first game and its remake. Oh boy. The beloved second entry in the series decided to skip the main character hating tradition only for Mega Man 3 to continue it again with yet another duplicate named Holograph Mega Man, which is fought in the final Wily levels again. 3 copies seem to appear for you to fight, and they are all capable of shooting at you, but only one is able to be harmed since, I guess, the others are just fake holograms that inflict not so fake pain on you. Also a pretty easy boss compared to what comes before it. Now the main games on console seem to have shied away from its obsession with copy robots, but the portable side games picked up the slack and then some. Throughout the Game Boy Mega Man games, there's a recurring boss called Quint. He's quite frankly pretty lame with his puke green armor and helmet and his lame jackhammer for a weapon, but guess what? That green idiot is actually you, or well, Mega Man from the future. Turns out that in an alternate future, the evil final boss of the series, Dr. Wily, got beat so bad that he had a change of heart. That change of heart doesn't actually last all that long though, since the Wily of the past ends up convincing him to abduct Rock, reconvert him into a super fighting robot, and then send him back in time so that Wily wins earlier in the timeline, for whatever reason. Quint first appears in Mega Man World 2 on Game Boy, where he retreats to parts unknown after being defeated. He then appears in Mega Man World 5, which is criminally overlooked. Our beloved hero goes to space where Wily has somehow cobbled up enough resources to build a bloody Death Star in space. Who the hell is sponsoring this guy? Palpatine? In the second stage of the Wily Star, there's a bit of a boss rush where we go through a bunch of bosses from previous games, including Quint. Now, there's speculation as to whether or not this Quint is actually a clone, since leading up to every boss fight in the stage, There's several of what seems to be capsules holding copies of the bosses inside of them. However, since this is the last time we actually get to encounter Quints in a proper game, I'm just gonna pretend that the Quint we blow up is in fact the real one, and that those capsules are just statues similar to what we see in Mega Man 1. And just like that, we've killed our first legitimate Mega Man, and we're still not even done with the classic games. For our second last entry in the original series, we're looking at a real obscure entry in the series, Mega Man N Base, Challenger from the Future, released for the Wonder Swan. It's never been released outside of Japan or even ported, although I'll be playing a translated version via dubious methods. The premise of this game is that a green, jackhammer riding Mega Man lookalike has come from the future to wreak havoc upon the past after already conquering the future. This isn't Quint, however, but actually another character from the same future called Rockman's Shadow, and wow! So far the Mega Man franchise has some of the lamest interpretations of the evil main character that I've ever seen. Heck, just look at the robots that Rockman's Shadow brings with him into the past. Compass Man, Clock Man, Komuso Man, Bullet Man, Stove Man, and Aircon Man. Look, if an air conditioning robot is what destroys humanity in the future, then quite frankly, humanity deserved it. Anyway, depending on which character you pick as at the start of a game, Shadow states that he's either Rock from the future if you're playing as Mega Man, or that he's yet another evil copy if you're playing as Base. I know the video is about killing Mega Man, but honestly, the repurposed Mega Man and Base soundtrack might kill me if I listen to it for too long. And I think Mega Man can hear the music too, because every time he warps into the level, he looks like he's got a massive hangover and is about to yak. Anyway, after defeating all the bosses and mortally wounding Rockman's Shadow, he reveals that he was lying before and is apparently originally an abandoned prototype for Quint, and traveled back in time so that he could find someone who could finally put an end to him. Yeah, just what the Mega Man storyline needed, assisted suicide. Now, the game isn't exactly clear as to whether or not Shadow is another Mega Man that Wily stole from another timeline, or if he's just a random robot that was a prototype build of Quint. Since Shadow states to Base that Wily built him, I think Shadow is ultimately a copy. Good riddance. So, the question still remains, how does the original Mega Man go out? It's a popular point of contention among the fanbase since none of the characters from the original series appear in the sequel X series, and the general assumption is that the events from Quint's timeline won't come to pass in the current timeline, except everyone is missing the game that would obviously show how the original Mega Man dies. Normally, beating the story mode just goes straight to the credits, but there is an actual ending scene that was hastily removed from the story mode. What you're seeing now is the ending, which is still accessible if you use a cheat device or just play a ROM with the ending added back in. I don't know what's worse, getting turned into someone as lame as Quentin dying, or dying because you were playing soccer with
Dr. Wowie.
Now, the next Mega Man on our list is the titular hero of the sequel Mega Man X games. Unfortunately, at no point during the X series does X himself ever die or have to destroy a clone of himself. However, there is another character we might as well look at, Zero. He doesn't ever get referred to as Mega Man in any of the actual Mega Man games, but his Game Boy Advance redesign is referred to as Mega Man Zero in both Onimusha Blade Warriors and Marvel vs. Capcom 3, not to mention that he's featured in promotional artwork that otherwise features only Mega Men. Yeah, it's pretty weak justification to include Zero, but honestly, including him just makes everything a little funnier, so he gets his own tally. The tradition of Zero dying starts as early as the first game he appears in, Mega Man X. Inside of Big Bad Sigma's fortress, X and Zero encounter Vile, who earlier in the game slapped X silly. The heroes aren't doing too hot until Zero self-destructs to get rid of Vile's ride armor. After slapping Vile silly with a Hadouken, X witnesses his best friend and mentor, now just a head and torso, succumb to his wounds. But don't worry, he gets better in the next game. I know I mentioned that X doesn't die at all throughout his series, but Dr. Light won't even give you the Hadouken ability unless you jump off a cliff and die like 5 times. Can't even power up Mega Man without dying, jeez. Now we move on to X2, where our main guy is tasked with retrieving all the reconstructed Zero parts from the X Hunters, who work for Big Bad Sigma, who also died last game but got better. If you succeed at recovering Zero's parts, Sigma proceeds to build a fake copy that the real Zero proceeds to destroy. Now we skip forward to Mega Man X5, Originally, this game was going to be the final game in the X series before transitioning into Zero's own series. In this game, Sigma has spread a deadly virus all over the planet and is planning on dropping a space colony onto Earth to wipe out life and spread even more virus all over the planet. X and Zero are tasked with gathering parts to repair a space shuttle and giant laser cannon so that they can destroy the space colony in time. So, in what is supposed to be the dramatic finale of Mega Man X's story, Zero flies the shuttle into the colony to save the Earth, and then X and Zero end up knocking each other out for some reason. Then Zero proceeds to wake up from the fight and fend off Sigma, and then after beating the final boss, it's Zero who gets to finish off the main villain of the Mega Man X series before tragically dying again as just a torso and a head. X didn't lose his life in this game, but he did lose his integrity because all he does in this game is just exist. I guess Capcom was just compensating for killing Zero off in this game. Said compensation being completely unnecessary since both the X series and Zero himself just come back with X6 anyways, where Zero hides himself and then repairs himself. He comes back once X kills the purple Kool-Aid copy of Zero, who was going around and minding his own business as far as I'm concerned. Well, we're done with the X series, but we're still not done with Mega Man X and Zero themselves, since they both return in the Mega Man Zero series. Looks like it wasn't enough for Zero to steal X's thunder in Mega Man X5, because when creating Mega Man Zero, the developers Inti Creates decided to make X the villain. Even the common enemies you encounter in the game, they're all modeled after X. It's like if your best friend ate your birthday cake, and then, to make it up to you at their birthday party, let you be the piñata. Inti Creates ended up getting a change of heart though, and decided to rewrite the villain as a copy of X just a few months before release. In Mega Man Zero, set 100 years after the X series, there's a massive energy crisis in the only livable part of the world, Neo Arcadia. To address this, Neo Arcadia's ruler Copy X decides to start being more eco-friendly, by murdering a bunch of sentient robot people. Ciel, the scientist who created Copy X, defects from Neo Arcadia, creates a resistance, and recruits Zero to fight back. After slicing his way through Neo Arcadia officials, Zero battles Copy X and verbally teabags him so bad that Copy X rage quits life and blows up the building he's in. The real X appears throughout the game as a cyber elf, basically a robot spirit, guiding Zero while X's actual body rests elsewhere, since X got real tired of having to save the world over and over for 100 years by himself. In Mega Man Zero 2, we discover that X has actually been sealing up a giant evil cyber elf with his body, and the antagonist of the game, El Paizo, ends up destroying X's body to use the cyber elf's power for himself. Iconic video game hero Mega Man X gets killed while taking a power nap. At least his spirit is still hanging around, and his arms I guess. Better than nothing. In Mega Man Zero 3, evil head honcho Dr. Vile, no relation to the other guy, resurrects Copy X and uses him to control Neo Arcadia, and also brings back the evil war machine Omega to terrorize humanity. X is seen by most humans as their lord and savior essentially, and most citizens are unaware that X died last game, so when Zero and Copy X battle again, Dr. Vile activates a self-destruct mechanism in Copy X, framing Zero and the Resistance for killing the real X and painting them as the Antichrist. Afterwards, it is revealed that the Zero we have been playing as is not the original Zero body, and that Dr. Vile's war machine, Omega, is the original Zero body from the X series but hijacked. Zero blows up Omega with the explosion knocking Zero unconscious. While passed out, X's spirit reassures Zero that his robot soul is the original Zero soul, and then X's spirit goes to the afterlife due to using up all of his energy. So 3 games in a row, Mega Man X has, as a copy or some form of himself, died like 4 times. X and Zero put Dragon Ball characters to shame when it comes to dying repeatedly. In Zero 4, the final game in this sub-series, Dr. Vile ends up fusing himself with a giant space satellite called Ragnarok, and starts directing it towards the first place on Earth where life and nature has naturally grown again, Area Zero. Zero ends up boarding Ragnarok and succeeds in destroying both Ragnarok and Dr. Vile, but tragically dies upon re-entering the atmosphere. Looks like X and Zero are finally dead for good, but they had a good run. And thankfully, I no longer have to keep saying their names over and over. Up next is the Mega Man ZX series, taking place around 100 years after the Zero series. The premise of this series is that humans and Reploids can utilize artifacts to transform into a Mega Man. These artifacts house the spirits of legendary heroes from past games such as X and Z. Ah, seriously? What is so bad about the robot afterlife that makes these guys just refuse to stay dead? With a large amount of biometals, there's a lot more Mega Men in the series, but the kill count is surprisingly not as big as you would expect. The protagonist of a game, who can be either Vent or Ale depending on who you choose, is the Blue Mega Man, who uses Model X to utilize Model X's double charge shot ability. Their mentor and boss is the Red Mega Man, Jiro, who uses Biometal Model Z to harness Zero's abilities, which is unfortunate for him because Zero's most prominent ability is dying. When he and the main character are taken down from an ambush by the antagonist, Jiro ends up sacrificing himself to give the main character Model Z so that they can double Mega Merge and survive with the power of both Model X and Model Z. After that, the only other Mega Man that ends up dying in this game is the final boss Serpent, who uses the power of the evil Biometal Model W to become the evil Mega Man. At the end of the game, the main character confronts him while he explains that he
blah 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 evolution blah 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 sacrifice.
The main character then proceeds to blow them up to Kingdom Come and save the day. Oh, I almost forgot. A weird data ghost of Omega also appears as an optional boss that In the second and last game in the ZX series, ZX Advent, we follow a new protagonist as they use Biometal Model A to put a stop to the fabled Game of Destiny that was hinted at in the previous game by evil Mega Man Prometheus and Pandora, who used the power of Model W as well. The Game of Destiny at first seems to revolve around gathering every Biometal compatible person to fight until only one Mega Man is left standing, a Mega Man King. Towards the end of the game, Prometheus and Pandora end up confronting their creator, Albert, who created Model W. Turns out there's multiple Model Ws and Albert is gathering them up so he can activate them and use them to become the ultimate Mega Man. Prometheus and Pandora's feelings of contempt and rage for Albert ends up being absorbed by the Model Ws, which powers them up, while rendering the twins unconscious. The last we see of Prometheus and Pandora is when they're unconscious while the area around them starts to collapse, so they may have died, but I like to think that they hid themselves while they repaired themselves. The main character goes on to confront Albert at the end of the game and asks why Albert is doing what he be doing. Albert explains that he
blah 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 evolution blah 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 sacrifice blah 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 all part of my plan.
Albert fuses with all the Model Ws to become the ultimate Mega Man, and things surprisingly don't go according to his plan since he's blown up. As for the other Mega Men in this series that are still alive, we never learn what happens to them after the events of ZX Advent. A few of them are human, so they probably die of old age, but I'm not going to count them since I follow the pics or it didn't happen law. Now we have the clunky but charming action-adventure series Mega Man Legends, which takes place at the very end of a Mega Man timeline thousands of years after the events of ZX Advent. Sometime after ZX Advent, humanity ends up getting wiped out, with their DNA backed up onto a supercomputer so that they can one day repopulate the Earth. In the meantime, artificial humans called carbons, or decoys in Japan, have been created to live on the planet. They seem identical to humans, except for the ability to freely swap their body parts with interchangeable robot parts. The carbons were only ever intended to live briefly before wiping them out and reproducing the humans from the stored DNA. On the island of Catalogs, there's a bureaucratic unit called Mega Man Juno, who's responsible for keeping the carbon population on Catalog small. Why he's called Mega Man is anyone's guess, since he doesn't look like any other Mega Man or have any of the iconic abilities. The one thing that he has in common with other Mega Men is that he dies, getting destroyed by Mega Man Volnut thanks to his unique ability, Circle Strafing. Fun fact, there were several scrap characters for both Legends 1 and 2 that were planned to have the name or title of Mega Man, but they were ultimately scrapped. As for Volnut, the Mega Man that we play as, he doesn't die, but he does have a fate that could be worse than death, being stranded on the moon in Legends 2's cliffhanger ending. Oh hey, I found where X's arms went. Some kid 1,000 years later trades you the X-Buster for like a comic book. Go figure. Since we've reached the end of the Mega Man timeline, that should mean that we ran out of Mega Man to murder, yeah! Except we still have a whole alternate timeline that began with the Battle Network series on Game Boy Advance. With new lore comes a new Mega Man, known as Megaman.exe. This guy is a NetNavi, basically a computer program that the main character, Lan Hikari, uses to either battle other people's NetNavis or to exterminate viruses on the internet. It also turns out that he has the DNA of Lan's dead twin brother Hub, who ended up getting turned into Megaman.exe post-mortem, which is kinda depressing to think about. Can't even become a Mega Man without dying first. Throughout the first two Battle Network games, Lan and Megaman.exe fight evil corporations like World 3, led by this universe's version of Dr. Wily. In the third game in the series, Dr. Wily ends up reactivating Alpha, a beta version of the internet that threatens to assimilate the whole internet and corrupt every device connected to it, which in the Battle Network universe is like all of them. Lan enters the internet himself via a device called the Pulse Transmission System, merges with Megaman.exe, and destroys the prototype internet. But Alpha ends up trying to take them down with it, so Megaman.exe sacrifices himself to save Lan and let him escape. I'd make a bigger deal about the noble sacrifice, but considering this is only the third game out of 6, it's pretty obvious that Mega Man comes back. In Battle Network 4, we are introduced to Dark Chips, which are very powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards that the player can use at the cost of potentially losing control over Mega Man. We're told that using the dark powers culminates in the event where Big Bad Duo.exe rips the darkness from Mega Man.exe and forces the player to fight their dark selves. If you defeat the dark copy, you can proceed to take on the final boss to save the day. Oh, and you can also fight a different dark copy again in Battle Network 5 if you beat every dark net navi really quickly. And to wrap everything up, in the GameCube network transmission game, there is an alternate version of Zero who, of course, dies if you reach the bad ending. Finally, after 20 whole games, we finally killed every last one that we could. The only other major Mega Man series that I haven't touched yet is the Star Force series, but at no point does Geostellar, the Mega Man of the series, ever get killed or have to fight an evil duplicate. And our total Mega Man death count comes to 8 copy Mega Man dead, 9 real Mega Man dead, for a whooping 17 mostly robot corpses. As for the fan favorite not exactly a Mega Man, Zero, he alone has 4 copy deaths and 4 legitimate deaths. Add him to the total count and we get a whooping 25 deaths. Characters named Mega Man die like I breathe air. And after all of that, all of those games, I'm gonna be up front here. I hate Mega Man now. Did I miss any Mega Man? I swear if I missed any Mega Man. Rockman Shotgun, god damn it!